In this video, I'm going to show you how to make drum and bass like this. All the samples used in this video are either in my Rollers DNB sample pack, link down below if you want to get that, and also they're on Splice. So the BPM of this track is 175, and the key of this track is D sharp minor. So this is a bit of a different tune to what we normally do, and for this track we decided to choose a theme and then work on that theme. So the theme we chose is like mariachi style trumpets and instruments and like Latin style music, and then we thought, can we turn this into like a drum and bass song? So we've got these different influences into this track, and then we can create this unique tune from it. So we're heavily influencing different cultures of music into drum and bass to see what kind of sounds we can get from it. And we thought this was a really cool idea, and we've actually released this track on all platforms. It's called Uno, Dos, Tres, and it's out now. So there's a link down below if you want to listen to it on Spotify. Feel free to add it to your playlist. But without further ado, let's get into the breakdown. So we're going to look at the drums, then we're going to look at the basses, then the vocals, then the instruments, and there's a lot of instruments, and then the effects. So let's start with the drums. So I'm just soloing the drums here, and then I'll just take you through them 16 bars at a time. So you can see at the top there, intro, build, drop. So we'll look at this section because the rest of it pretty much just repeats itself. So let's zoom all the way into the first 16 bars, and let's just scroll down. So the intro is very simple. We found this loop on Splice that sounds like this. So it's kind of that groovy Latin style drum loop that you've got here. Makes you want to dance. And then we've layered it with this bongo loop we found as well. That follows the same groovy pattern. And then we've got this conga loop as well. And I believe all these are from Splice. So when you put all three of these loops together, you get this. And you can already feel that style coming into drum and bass. And we've essentially just sped all these up to 175 BPM. And it sounds great. So those three loops are all that happens for the first 16 bars. And then these continue into the next 16 bars, which is the breakdown / build up. You can see exactly just copied across. And then we add in new elements. So let me just highlight 4 bars for you. So let me just delete these for you. So we're using Rollers kick 3 here. And then we're just putting it on the first beat and halfway across the third beat like this, and then just Control D all the way across like this. And then we've got Rollers snare number 3. These are all from the Rollers DNB pack, and this is just going to go on the second beat, and then we're using this one on the 4th beat, and then we're just copying these across like this. If we turn these both on, sounds like that throughout, and then that's just copied for the entire section until we get to the breakdown here. So you see 4, 8, 12 bars, and then 4 bars of build up. So this is just the kick drum playing more frequently, and then even more frequently. And then 1 bar before the drop is the pre-drop, and that's where all the drums will stop and the pre-drop will happen. So on top of that, we've got this little snare build up, which sounds like this. And that just repeats up until 1 bar before the drop. And then we've also got some layers. So we've got some snare layers here. And this is layered with the snare here. And this just makes the snare sound even fatter. And then we've got our hi-hats and some drum loops as well to add more groove to the track. So we've got just a hi-hat on its own, hi-hats number 4. With a load of reverb on it, a Valhalla room reverb, which is automated, so it won't always be like that. And then we've got this crazy fast drum loop, and then a supporting drum loop here. And they just repeat until 1 bar before the drop, and this cuts off. So altogether, you should get something that sounds like this. And then the drop is pretty much exactly the same, apart from we've removed this element, and we've removed some of the hi-hats and some of the layers here, and we've added in some different layers. So we've added in this percussion down here, which is like some samba style stuff, keeping the theme going. And then we've just added another hi-hat in here just to add more groove, hi-hat 1. So this is like at the end of the second beat, and then the drums and the kick all stay the same. We get this now. Pretty similar to when the drums come on here, but just a slight variation on some of the things. And then if we look at the drop, we have 8 bars. So Control L, I'll just loop it for you so you can see. So every 8 bars, we have a pause for 1 bar at the end where we have like a little drum fill. So this is like a drum acting as a drum fill, and then we could add another drum fill here. And then it just creates a nice little section for the instruments to come back in. So it's not just basses constantly playing. So 7 bars of basses, 1 bar of instrument, and then it repeats 7 bars, 1 bar throughout the drop. So that's just something to keep in mind for your tracks. Trying out not having the basses just playing all the way throughout, introducing the instruments from the intro back in at the end of each section, just to keep things interesting and so it doesn't get boring. And you'll see what I mean when we go through them later on. So yeah, we've used a lot of samples from Splice for this one because we picked a theme, and on Splice there's such a diverse amount of samples. You can find like specific things like a samba drum loop that you wouldn't normally be able to find. That's why I like using samples I've created as well as samples other people have created, because I'm not going to be an expert in like samba rhythms, for example, whereas other people will be. So that is the drums complete. And if you're enjoying this video so far and you're liking the method that I use to produce, and you can see this project template here, I use this in pretty much all my tracks. I've got one for FL Studio as well. Then my Music Production Academy is available to join as well. What we do in that academy is we help you completely transform your music from average to creating bangers. So if you want to join that, just click the Join the Music Production Academy link down below, and I'll see you inside. So now let's look at the basses. This is going to be heavily sampled basses, and a couple of them are from the sample pack as well. So let's just look at how I've done this. I believe this first bass was a resampled bass that we've now put in here. So this bass is playing a D sharp, and it's like a very low hitting bass that has just got some EQ on it and then a Pro L just stopping it from redlining. So you can see this bass is very quick. It's just on the first beat, and then we've got the wobble that comes in for the rest. So this is 1 bar here, and it's got a bass in it and then the wobble. So if we select the full 8 bars here, you can see that we're following the A-B-A-C method. So this is A, and then this is B, and then this is A again, and then this is C. So what essentially means is this is the same as this. This is slightly varied here, and then this is a brand new section. So I'll play it so you can hear what I mean. And I'll just turn the instruments on as well, otherwise there won't be anything playing in section C. Listen. So the first section A, I'll just highlight. So we've got this wood bass playing a D sharp, and then we've got our wobble bass. It's playing D for this, and then we've got this synth over the top that kind of adds like a nice noise layer, a vocal noise layer mixed with that, which is just basically just trial and error making that. I think I got lucky finding this sample on Splice, and then I was like, what if it went over this bass that I've made? So this is just Roller's bass loop number 2, part of Roller's bass loop number 2. And I was like, wow, that sounds so cool. So I kept it. And then we have the bass coming in again here, the wobble coming in again here, and then a bass transition, so just this but pitched up. And then section B is pretty much exactly the same, apart from this bass is like lower instead of higher. And then obviously this section here is the same as this section, and then section C just has the bass playing once, and then we have the instruments from the intro coming back in. And then this pretty much repeats itself for another 8 bars, and then for the next 16 bars we have some variation in the basses. So you can see here I've done some variation, and if I play it for you, you'll hear it. So it goes up a little bit. So these are just chopped out and then pitched up, as you can see down here, +3, +3. So let's listen. And then that's just repeated. So you can see very subtle changes just to keep it interesting. So now let's look at the vocals. So the vocals are basically just like little ad-libs throughout. So we just searched the internet, searched Splice, and see what we could find. And we found this cool vocal here at the end of the first 8 bars. Sounds like this. And then we found this and this vocal here, these 2 vocals. And then we like looped this and created a bra at the end. We thought all this sounded really good with all the trumpets. And then just before the drop, we had this uno, dos, tres, which I thought was a pretty cool sample. I think that's literally just off Splice as well. And then these just repeat throughout the drop just to keep things interesting. And then it actually works as a really good way of transitioning out of the drop here. I'll play for you. I just thought that sounded so cool. If you don't necessarily have any vocals to work with for a track, you can just focus on building nice melodies with your instruments and then adding little ad-libs in like this to keep it interesting. You don't just need to not have vocals at all. These little ad-libs add a lot to the track, I think. And the track wouldn't sound nearly as good without them. So the unos, dos, tres just comes in one beat after the bar before the drop. So if you've got any questions about these vocals, then let me know in the comments or any of this. And also, if you're enjoying the video so far, I'd appreciate if you could just smash that like button. It would really help the channel out. So let's now look at the instruments. So a lot of these are from Splice again. And what we've done is like reprocessed some, re-exported some, and essentially just layered a few different instruments together. So we've got this Atmos playing here, which is a nice layer in the background. And then we've got this trumpet here, which is a sample just reprocessed. And then we've got this counter melody playing here. And these together sound like this. And then another layer we've got here, like a piano. So all these playing together with the layer. And then we've got some Atmos that comes in here. And then they come in a bit louder because we're EQing. And then pretty much just keeps happening up until one bar before the drop where it all stops. And then the vocal comes in here. And then in the drop, this is like a full loop of some of the instruments with a bass as well. Like the end section of the loop. So it kind of follows what a lot of this is playing. And then I've just copied this in at the end of each section. So that gap that we talked about earlier where the bass has happened, it's just got this playing. And then this one is slightly varied. And then just copied and copied again. So it's basically just what this element is here, but with like a bass guitar in as well. As you can hear, and no like filters or anything on it, just pure that sound. And we still have the Atmos playing. So yeah, I hope that makes sense to you. What we did basically is just search through sample packs, search through Splice, search through any other website, looking for these unique Latin style trumpets and pianos and any other instruments we could think of, and then just layering them on top of each other until we got something that sounded really cool. So we used a melody, a counter melody, a supporting melody with the piano, and then managed to create this really awesome, unique melody that sounds so cool, and then just sped it up into drum and bass. BPM was 175 BPM. So feel free to experiment, pick like a style of music from anywhere in the world, see if you can turn it into drum and bass. Be really interesting to see what kind of things you can come up with. And also one thing I've noticed making this track, it's actually a lot easier to make like promoting material. So like silly TikToks or something like that to help promote your track. It can be done a lot easier when the track has a theme. So for example, you could have like a video revolving around like a trumpet, for example, or like a mariachi band playing a trumpet, and then they just like appear and you're like shocked. And then, you know, it's just easier to come up with ideas to promote your track rather than just having like a standard drum and bass track. So lots to think about here. And then finally, we are just going to look over some of the effects. So there's a lot of one-shot effects in this, as you saw with the vocals as well. And this just helps keep the track interesting, keep it moving, adds stuff to the drop as well. There's a lot of one-shots in the drop. So let me just play through and show you what I've got. So we've got this vinyl loop here, which is just adding some static to the background. And then we've got down filters here. And this little element here is really cool. K Junto added this, and I just think it sounds really cool as a transition. You'll hear it now. for when the drums come in. It just works so well. And then we don't really have that much in the build up. There might have been a riser here, but it didn't load on my computer for some reason. And then in the actual drop, there's actually a lot going on. So we've got all these different one-shot effects. So what I'll do is I'll play this first section of the drop and you can just hear the sounds that I've got in. So we've got like this bird sound, a whip sound, some weird sound, some weird vocal sound here, and then like some sweeps as well. And a lot of these sounds you can find on Splice, and I've actually got quite a few sounds like this in the Rollers DNB pack as well. And without them, I feel like the drop would just sound a little bit worse and a little bit less varied. So this pretty much repeats throughout. There's a few little changes here and there. Just trial and error some sounds in. Don't go too crazy and make sure they are really quiet and in the background and not too loud compared to the rest of the instruments in the tune. So that is the track complete. Let's listen to the first section of the track. This track is out on all platforms. It's called Uno, Dos, Tres. Really appreciate it if you could give it a stream, add it to your playlist, share it with your friends. It would mean a lot as I'm giving all this information on how it was made away for free. And if you want to get the Rollers DNB sample pack and make similar music to this, then that is down below. And of course, if you want even more help making stuff like this, then my academy is there as well. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.